first we have Type Logic, is that all right? Start their presentation, so.
Thank you, Ms. Davis, and I'm over here gabbing away and making a fool of myself, and trying to get us started. My apologies. Look, good evening, members of the board, and, the first thing that I'd like to do is to thank you again for, put that down where, okay. I can speak loud. I want to thank you, again, from the bottom of my heart for allowing us the opportunity to work together with you, and I mean that so sincerely. We've got some great opportunities to do some great things for children, and that's really what it's all about. It's not about children. I don't know all profession. So I want to thank you again, and I'm going to thank you again publicly tomorrow evening with the community. In my opinion, every school district in the country ought to be doing similar kinds of things to work together with their community. So again, I appreciate that. The first thing I'd like to do this evening, following down that list that I sent you earlier, in this for this meeting this evening, but I'd like to introduce some folks to you that you haven't met before, and maybe ask that they would take just a moment at a time to tell you a little bit about themselves, because they're going to be involved with us as well. First, I'd like
before you do that, we have people live streaming and they may not know anything about this process or why you're here or what your presentation is about. So if you could please start with that for the people online, or maybe some people even in the audience may not know.
I'd be most happy.
Thank you.
I represent a group called School IQ. School IQ is a subset, if you will, of Site Logic Incorporated. Site Logic, by the way, is one of the country's largest companies that works with schools to look at their facilities and to look at how they improve the academic performance of the facilities, both academically as well as from the standpoint of being energy efficient. School IQ is the educational side, if you will, of psychology. And what happened earlier is that Elkhart Community Schools put out an RFP to talk about their facilities and the demographics that are happening, the changes of their demographic population here, and we responded to that RFP. And we were fortunate enough that we came and met with the board on 2 occasions, and they were kind enough to give us the opportunity to move forward with what we call a feasibility study. For those that don't understand, the term feasibility is just that. It's like people look for, there's issues every day, and people look for solutions to issues. And for us, the term feasibility means that it has to, any issues that you have, if we were to help you to find solutions to, first, they have to advance the ability of teachers to teach children to learn. That's the number one thing. Anything that we talk with you about, or with any school district about, is that it has to improve the life of children. That's number one, education. So that's number one. Second thing that anything we recommend or we present as options to the board to consider and the community to consider, they have to be not only educationally sound, but they have to be fiscally sound. In other words, why would we present things back to the community board that the school district couldn't fund? That would make no sense whatsoever. So as we proceed through the feasibility process, that's the thing that we have to do. So options that we talk to the community board about, they have to be things that you can afford to do. And then finally, and the most important one in my eyes, is the fact that Kelly is
My future policy.
that's perfectly okay. You know, I was over here blabbing when we were supposed to start also.
Good. Thank you, Beth.
But the third thing that we have to do then is that anything that we present back for consideration must be community acceptable. Because in my 76 years of age, what I have found is that sometimes that we literally don't understand what someone else is thinking, and the community is made up of many different people in the community. It's not just one community. Many times we have multiple communities, and we don't recognize that there are multiple communities within the school district. So anything that we do in terms of helping the school district to find solutions to issues, those solutions have to be community centered. So our process is called the feasibility process. There are 5 elements to the feasibility process, if you will, and one of those is the education side. So what are the academic problems that the school district's having that we might bring some expertise and help background to improve the assessment? Another one is a demographic study, and we are working with a very outstanding demographer from Minnesota, and she's not going to be able to be with us this evening, today, tomorrow, but I'll give you a really brief update there. But the demographics portion is that school district is always changing. It's either growing or it's receding in student population. Very, very few school districts in this country are stagnant with their population. They're not making much change. If you find that you've got one or the other, you've got a growing district or a district that's in decline in student population. And in Elkhart's case, we have a school district that's losing enrollment, and that's one of the issues that we want to study and talk about. Why is that? And what do we do to improve that opportunity for families that come here and keep their children? So that's one of those elements we want to discuss too. So that's a demographic part. Then there's a third part, and that part, of course, is the facilities part, where SiteLogic, representatives from SiteLogic will have a conversation with you for just a few minutes this evening and say, here's what we've done since you've decided to bring us on board. So I'll let them talk about that. But that's where we actually look at all of the facilities and say, where are they present? What are the issues with those facilities, where they presently sit? And it's a very interesting process, by the way, to do. And I would tell you this, I've been at this an awful long time, and I would share with you at SiteLogic because the best what they do of any company I've ever worked with. I worked with a number of different firms last year. But I'll let them explain a bit more about that. And then the next item we talk about is the business side. One of the things that happens is that as school districts look at changing their facility arrangements, whatever those might be, sometimes, school districts are declining in enrollment and they've got too many buildings, and therefore the buildings that were built for maybe 1,000 kids maybe only have 600 or 700 children in them. That happened in my own district, by the way, when I was superintendent, one of my last superintendent's positions. And so it's like, okay, now we've got room for 200 or 300 more kids in the building, but we don't have them, and we're spending money every month to keep those buildings operational, and that's costing us money. So that's a difficult thing. So we have that as the fourth element is looking at facilities. And the fifth element for us is, as I said, the most important piece is the community involvement. And so what we're involved here and what we'll share tomorrow with the full community, and the board has already heard, by the way, folks, is that we have a very important community involvement piece where we want to hear from representatives of the entire community. And so we have a process that we'll talk about later on tonight. So, Ms. Davis, I hope that brings.
Thanks, Steve, I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you for letting me know, get up. So, my apologies. But that brings us to kind of where we are this evening. So, at this point, I'm going to introduce some people and have them give you just a brief background, and they're here for a reason, because they have outstanding backgrounds that will assist us in this process. The first one I'd like to introduce is Paula O'Loughlin, and I'll ask Paula to come and talk just for a few minutes. She represents our school on Q with our firm.
Good evening, President Davis, Superintendent Formative, members of the board, and yes, thank you so much for having us here tonight. My name is Paula O'Loughlin, and I just want to share just a little bit about my background and kind of what has brought me to this work. Started out many years ago in the classroom as a teacher, had my degree in elementary education with a middle school math specialty, and from there started working in the district office doing student programming, curriculum, and development, and also had the good fortune and privilege of serving on my local school board in my hometown of Stillwater, Minnesota. And so, and then spent a couple of years, almost 2 years, at the Minnesota School Boards Association, where I served as the Associate Director of Board Development, working with school boards around the state, really working together to member to select you and grateful to be here. And look forward to getting to know you and working with you for sure.
So, Paula, what role, will you be playing? Like, what is your part in this process?
She actually will be involved working with our community engagement piece as well. And she will be with us also when we start interviewing, school district employees, as well as we work with the community, focus groups in the evenings. That can come back and we can spend several weeks in this. Next, I'd like to introduce Anne-Marie Kluzak and Todd Garrison, and I'll have Anne-Marie come up first. Anne-Marie and Todd are both with Psychologic.
Hello, thank you again for having us tonight. My name is Anne-Marie Kluzak. I've been with Psychologic for a while now. I have a 15 years background in residential and commercial design and construction. I am with Psychologic to help you guys. I'm like your concierge. So any questions on the facility end, please ask me. So basically, facilities end, I know you guys have heard a little bit about what's going on. So we had our team out here, about 20 members or so, 17, I think it is exactly, walking the building, taking photos, assessing everything. So we do rooftops, blacktops, and everything in between. It's assess all your buildings, see what's going on, so we can finally do a report for hopefully by the end of the year and sit down with the board and everyone, the staff, administration, and see where your buildings are at. And so we can help guide you to make the best decisions on what needs to be done. So we're basically just here to guide, advise, and tell you, or you help us and tell us what we can do to improve the buildings and your district. But I'm going to pass on the business card at the end. So any questions, like I said, with anything, please let me know. And thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Board, Superintendent, thank you for letting us attend. Yeah, you asked about Psychologic. The word solutions always comes to mind. That's what we do. Is we provide solutions, and they're unique to the needs of the K-12 corporations. And so each school corporation has different needs, and our job is to look at those needs and provide solutions for you. My role, and I'm the newest at Psychologic, as I just joined in July. I'm an educator of 31 years. I recently retired in administration. I started out my teaching career in school. I don't know if you've heard of Calumet High School, which is over in Gary, Indiana. I was there for 5 years. Absolutely loved it. I was a coach, football and basketball there. Got married. Knew nobody in Lake County whatsoever. So neither did my wife. So we moved down to Indianapolis, and I worked in several different school corporations in Indiana. And as I said, I finished up as a principal at Greenwood. So that's a little bit about my career. I've been through this process. At Greenwood, when I got to Greenwood, we were, I think it was called at the time, Steve, I'm trying to remember what the terms were. Academic probation, I think may have been the term at that time. 1 year we went to a 4-star school, and it was crazy. We didn't intend, and we had no purposes of going from academic probation to 4-star, and we're not really sure how we did it. Looking back, there was no silver bullet. It was a community engagement. It took staff members, students, community, board, to put that together. So I've been through that process, and I look forward to going through that process with you. Thank you.
One of the things that I've been asked about, how does Psychologic really know whether your facilities are in good shape or not? Here's an interesting thing. So, in every one of your buildings, you have air handlers, and you have chillers and boilers, and that sort of stuff, the bolts of the building. Well, what Psychologic does, because I spent 3.5 years with them before I came out to the education side and working basically as director of feasibility studies, but one of the things they do is they go in and catalog every piece of equipment that you have in every building, and they find out what year was it manufactured. Okay. And then after they get the manufacturer specifications down, they say, okay, how long is the useful life of that piece of equipment? what does the manufacturer say is the useful life of that piece of equipment? And they'll catalog that in every building as well. So the reality is, if the manufacturer says this piece of equipment is good for 20 years, and after that, who knows, as an example, then you'll find out when you get Psychological come and present their findings to you for every building, you'll find out which buildings are already over the useful life and which pieces of equipment are over the useful life. Does not mean necessarily that that piece of equipment is still not functioning. But what it does say to you is it's on borrowed time. Some of those pieces of equipment are not functioning full capacity. And that's one of the things that happens too, is to say, is that piece of equipment operating at its full capacity? And in some cases it's operating, but it's not operating at its full capacity. And that's costing money. And then since money follows children by the state of Indiana, as children, the number of children are not the same as it was, 5 or 10 or 20 years ago, then that is impacting your budget and your ability to fund your education and moving forward. So facilities does have a major part of being able to fund your entire program as well as the number of children you have. So that's what we'll bring to you through Psychologic is you're going to know your buildings better than you've ever known before. That's our goal, and it will happen, I promise you. Okay. Before we go on now, I want to talk about the demographics portion just for a moment. And you've met Hazel, right? Or she was here and made a presentation to you. She is quite nationally known and has worked with New York City schools and a few others besides, by the way. But Hazel had a presentation these 2 days, and so couldn't be with us, and I apologize for her. She wanted me to do that as well. But she's already started on the demographics portion of the work and has been able to obtain quite a bit of information. It's not ready yet to share that with you, but she is working on that with that conversation. So you'll find it very interesting. One of the things that we're going to be talking with is we want to talk to families about why do children go to some other district besides going to Elkhart schools. So we want to talk to families and find out about that. We want to talk to kids. And we're going to talk to children. We will not talk, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. I should have turned around and said something to you folks before. I apologize to you. But the reality is we're going to talk to children in this district as well. Now, we will not talk to elementary children. Some of the things that we believe are probably not quite their level of development may not be quite as good to get discussions from them. We will talk to middle school children, and we will talk to high school children. So that's part of also what we do. We talk about opening up the lines of communication. We want to do it throughout the whole district. All right. So, but we'll do that. The next thing is we want to talk about the 9 areas that have been identified by the board. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Would you be willing to talk to a few alumni, graduates of the schools too?
Sir, we'll talk to anybody.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We certainly will.
I find that, our alumni are some of our greatest resources, immediately after they graduate through their college career and also into their business or, whatever they do for a living.
Yes.
And they become great supporters of the school. But I would like to see that, some of the recent alumni, detail their experience within the, the high school and the middle schools.
We're glad to have them as part of our community group. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yes, sir. So I'll talk about how we got to this list of 9, and then we're going to have some discussion on that. Before I do, I'd like to share a story with you. This is a true story. In fact, it's my story. So members of the board and members of the community as well. When I was a young superintendent, I thought I knew everything. I remember, I really did. I thought, boy, I'm just brilliant. Of course they hired me as a superintendent because I'm Mr. Education. Okay? Well, it didn't take too long before I realized that wasn't true. And this is the true story. I have 2 quick ones for you. So I went into my office first time as a superintendent. My predecessor opened the desk drawer. My predecessor ended up with putting 3 envelopes in my desk drawer. And it says to Dr. Jarman, envelope number 1 to be opened in the event of your first difficult situation. And the second one said, envelope number 2, open this on your second difficult situation as a superintendent. And the third was, open this on your third one. And I thought, well, I won't need those. I'm just sure I won't. And guess what? It didn't take just a few months, and all of a sudden, the board was asking questions, and I wasn't sure I had the right answers. So I went in and I grabbed that first envelope, I opened it up. True story. And it said, tell them you're new. You're still learning. Sure enough, I went back to the board meeting that night, and I said to the board, when the issue came up, and I said, folks, please know, I've only been here a few months. I apologize for that, but I'll need to get some more information. So guess what, it worked. They gave me some more time. I appreciate it. Seems like it hasn't been even the first full year yet, maybe a year and a few months, and all of a sudden we have another issue that seemed to come up and raise its head, and the board was wanting to have more questions, and so I thought, oh my gosh, I need some more help. What do I do? I went back and I opened up envelope number 2, and it said, Dell, tell the board that you need some research time, and you'll get back to them as soon as possible to get more research. So I did that, and the board thought that was very reasonable. Okay, we'll give you more time, more research. And then it seemed like within the first 3 years or so, I had a third major incident seemed to come up. And I ran in and said, this time I couldn't wait, I had to get to that envelope number 3, and envelope said, Dell, make 3 envelopes. So, folks, it's tough today to be a board member. And I know that. I've never been a board member, but I've certainly served under many, many members. And it's tough to also be a school administrator. We're asking more of school people, being boards and administrators, than at any time in the history of education. My last superintendency in Indiana, this is my second last story here for you, and I'll probably tell this one tomorrow night in the community. So my last time superintendent here was just not too far down the road at Blackford County Schools. When I was hired as superintendent of Blackford County Schools, I was the 5th superintendent in 12 years. Not a single superintendent had ever retired from Blackford County Schools when they were superintendent. That's in the history of the school district. And the gentleman that I had replaced had been in the district less than a year. Blackford County was losing enrollment. And there were those in the community that said, we need to consolidate and build one middle school for the whole county, and it needs to be right out there by the high school. And in fact, that had been floated around to the board for the last 5 or 10 years, through 3 superintendents, by the way. And at one point, the board had already hired a architectural firm. The architectural firm had done over $500,000 worth of work. There was a board change, and the new board came in and stopped the whole process. The previous board had already spent $500,000. So on my first day, I did some homework before I went after this job, actually, okay? As I got older, a little more intelligent, I think about finding fits, if you will. And I thought maybe this might be a good fit. I might ask me when I apply, are you sure you know what you're doing there? I said, no. I do love the children there, I think. That's the work. I actually went into the district a couple of months before I applied, and just, that's a neat people. But the bottom line was this. My first day as superintendent, 7 gentlemen came into my office. I was still unpacking boxes, and they said, could we have a meeting with you? And I said, certainly. So we sat down, and they spent the first 35, 45 minutes introducing themselves, and then telling me why we should have one middle school in one location at the high school. At the end of that 35-minute period, one of them, who by the way had run for the governor's office in the state of Indiana, very, very large farm, by the way, and he said to me, well, Doc, what do you think we should do? And I made the comment to those folks, it doesn't make any difference what I think we should do. Because we got to find out what the community will accept. Because so far the community hasn't accepted anything that has been better for children. And the children are suffering. So it doesn't make a difference what I think is best for kids. What can we find that this community can pull together and say, that's good for kids? And that's the philosophy that I've worked under for the last 15 years. What's good for children? And that's what we want to do here. We want to open the discussion throughout the community to find out what's best for children. Okay? That's what we want to do. So, as we come to you with 9 different areas to study, I sent those out to you, and I'll read those for the community if it's okay. And then maybe we can have some discussion. But what I'd like to have is a board's approval decision for these 9 to be our areas of study. The first one that we came up, by the way, how we got that, everybody, is the board members sent me individual responses to questions that I asked about what you see as the major challenges for the school district. And then Dr. Fallmeyer also had meetings with his administrative group, and we said the same questions. Tell us what your most pressing needs are for our school. And then we collated that information to find out what kept coming up over and over again, the most. And we came up with 9 very distinct areas that people had most often said, these are things we ought to talk about and look into. And here they are. One is the loss of students, families, and staff in Elkhart schools. The second one, public relations and community perceptions of the school district. The third one, academics, math and English language arts academic performances. The next one, instructional practices and the speed of curriculum implementation. The next one, school safety, security, and discipline issues. The next one down, school facilities and funding. Number 7, trust and faith in district leadership. Number 8, improved collaboration and communication between board and school district leadership. And number 9, developing and improving community relations. So, those are the 9 areas that most often were mentioned. So what I would like to do is I need permission from the board to proceed. And what we'll do, if the board gives us permission and says, okay, we can live with those 9, okay? Here's what we do. We put together as a group of school IQ people, educators, we are, we put together a list of questionnaires dealing with those 9 areas. And we're pretty good at this. We know what we're doing. We've been doing this before. This is not our first rodeo, as they say. So we're going to put together a list of questionnaires. Now, they're really not questionnaires. They're basically statements. And they require a Likert scale rating from 1 to 5. There's a reason that's done that way. But we'll put together this list. And then we'll send it back to Dr. Fallmeyer and his staff, and we'll say, look these over, please. Are they appropriate? Are they well enough presented? Will people be able to understand what we're asking them to do? They will get back to us how Steve handles that with all that's between the board and the superintendent staff. This is what we send it back to the contact person. And when those are completed, we probably would answer this with a different way, or we present this as a different kind of statement, whatever. But we finally get approval from the administration to move forward, those would work. Once we have that, we take that draft and we finalize it, and then that goes on to SiteLogic for us, and we have a group that does nothing but just do this. And then that's put in a SurveyMonkey format. Now, not every questionnaire will go to everybody. Some of the questionnaires will only go to the faculty, because they're only appropriate for faculty to answer. Certainly when it comes to some of the academic math and language arts questions that are somewhat specific to that, okay? Some will go to the full community. They'll be for faculty, non-certificated, and full community members. Some will be just the students, all right? But when we get done, we'll ask for permission to proceed. Once we have permission to proceed, those will be put in final form, and then I'll send those back to Dr. Thalman. And I'll say, now, your IT department needs to get to work. And then you use what resources that you have to get those distributed. Okay? When they're distributed, we tell school districts, please give them 2 weeks. We found that if it goes more than 2 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, people drag on it. They don't see the importance. If it goes less than 2 weeks, they won't have enough time to think through some of the things they want to think through. So 2 weeks is about appropriate, and it usually gives us a very good response rate. People are going to do it are going to do it within 2 weeks. Okay? Once we get the results back, by the way, this is done electronically. So once the results of that comes back electronically to us, then those are analyzed. And what happens is we find out what the themes of those, the themes that come out of those answers. From the themes, now our education team sits back down and says, okay, that's the themes. Now we've got to dig deeper and find out what does that mean. At that point, we'll schedule our whole team to come back in, and we plan to be here somewhere between probably 8 days, 10 days, something with a whole team of people. I'm meeting tomorrow. In fact, we're all meeting tomorrow with the administrative team, and we're going to talk about how we get into each building. Well, we'll be in every building. We will meet with all of your academic staff. We will meet with all of your non-academic staff. So we're going to meet with cooks and custodians and bus drivers and nursing staff. We're going to meet with everyone. And we're going to basically say, you've seen that TV show that says, survey says. And we're going to go, survey says, and we're going to say, tell us what that means to you. And then we're going to get deeper down and see what does that mean. Now, we'll be in your school buildings all day long. And then we'll get about an hour's break. And then we're going to have community meetings in the evening for the community members. And as we put together those community focus groups, we'll come back to the board and say, we need help on who should be on these committees, because we don't know your folks. Okay? So Steve and his staff will look at each committee we ask them to put together, and they'll look for volunteers and people that have a strong interest in that area. And they'll ask if they would sit on a focus group for us. And then we'll have focus group meetings in the evenings. All right, so we put in about 14-hour days when we're here. But we gather a lot of information. Once we've got all that completed, then we're ready to start thinking about, okay, here's what we've learned. Now we understand the issues in the district well enough to start asking and put together some options that you might want to consider. At the same time that we're doing that, we're getting work and feedback from SiteLogic. Here's how the buildings look. You're going to get the same thing we're going to get. They're going to tell us, here's the village, here's what buildings are in best shape, here's what buildings are in worst shape. More importantly, at some point, you're going to have to tell SiteLogic if you want to put together some options and cost figures. Right? That discussion will come between you and them at some other time. But we're going to have to know the same thing you know about buildings. And then we're going to start looking at options that we can present to you. So the next thing that we'll talk about after that is we're gonna get your approval hopefully for these 9 areas. That's the next thing I wanna do. You would do that, I would think, in a public meeting, which is your board meeting, okay? So we're presenting information now. We ask that you might be able to give us that approval when the time comes. Next thing I would tell you is the discussion and membership selection and makeup of the Elkhart Key Community Committee. And I sent to you, not names of folks, but areas of people that would be helpful to be on the committee. If it would be okay, I'd like to share with the audience back here what I sent to you. So, folks, what we suggested as members that would need to be on the community committee is mayor, city, county, council members, law enforcement, fire department representation, hospital administration, chamber of commerce and business community members, manufacturing, community engagement, wellness people, economic development folks, farm communities, farm bureau people and members, clergy, the board attorney, senior citizens groups, school administration, including the superintendent, because he's over the top of the whole thing. That doesn't sound like it, but it's true. That always kept me out saying what you do, so that's okay. Teacher leadership, faculty members, non-certificated staff members, bus drivers, custodians, and cooks, not all of them, of course. Parents and then grandparents, because grandparents don't have children to work for, they certainly have.
Dale, can you make sure you talk to the microphone so the people online can hear?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I apologize. I need to have 2 mouths, one in the back and one in the front. But
You can, take that out of the thing.
Oh, can I?
Yeah. There you go.
You can tell I was not a performer, right? So what I said was mayor, city, county, council members, law enforcement, and fire department representation, hospital administration, chamber of commerce, and business community members, manufacturing, community engagement, wellness committee members, economic development members, farm community, farm bureau representatives, clergy, board attorney, senior citizens, school administration, teacher leadership, faculty, non-certificated staff reps, parents, grandparents, and others that the board may choose. So we're suggesting that a group of 35 to 45 should be on a key community committee. We have found in our experience that if you get less than that for a district the size of Elkhart, you don't get good enough representation. And if you get a group that gets much larger than 45, it gets so large that you can't work with it because it's too big. So that's one of the issues that we've come up against. Obviously, it's the board's decision as to who they put on there, but we hope that you'll represent those groups in some fashion with the people you select. Now, the other thing I would ask of you is this. You've seen that because I sent it to you a week or 2 ago. But folks, however you want to go about the process of getting names for that and getting people selected, that's entirely up to the community, the board, and the superintendent group. But I would ask if there is any chance that we could have that committee together here by October the 4th. I would love for us to come back and to say hi, introduce ourselves to that group, if it's possible. If it's not, that's okay. So we're not under a major time frame that we can't work with here for you. But if that's a possibility, it would be great to have that group in place by that time. Sir?
At the community meeting tomorrow night,
Yes.
are you going to be asking the public there if they're interested, if they would like to serve on this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So, the one thing that we want to do is this. We want to make sure that everyone gets represented, the communities get represented. Here's an interesting thing that we've discovered already in the demographics, and it's pretty important. The Elkhart County is made up of about, won't be perfectly to this, but around 70% white, about 30% African American, Latino, and other population. However, Elkhart Community Schools doesn't have that same demographics. It's about 40% white and 60% African American, Latino, and others. So what we're asking the board to do as you select your final membership list we kind of would like to have a balance of close to 50-50, if you will, so that we can make sure that we do get to listen to all groups. If you can. All right? So that's what we're going to ask you to do, and we'll ask Dr. Thalmeyer to work with getting names to the board as he and you see fit. If it's possible, Steve, for us to get that by the third, you know, so we can make arrangements to come on the fourth, that would be great. If you need more time, please, sir, you have it. Okay? All right. The last thing I will share with you, by the way, is the discussion about board representation. And members of the community, I want to share with you what I shared with the board previously, which is this. We don't want the board to have 4 board members on there, because that would represent a quorum, and that would have to be a called meeting. But we would ask the board to select 2 or 3 members of itself to serve on the key community committee. That is not part of the 35 to 45. However, we tell the board members this: you're there to be a resource to the committee. So people ask questions about the school district, please answer, please help the committee to understand when they have questions about the school district, okay? But this key committee has major functions. The first function is basically to understand their role, okay? As we gather information from the community in the school district, we're going to share that with that key committee. So the second thing is they gather information about what we learn. The next thing that happens, of course, is that they'll also hear about the facilities development work that Anne Marie and her group's working with. They'll find out the same thing that you'll be making presentations to the board, Anne Marie, and you'll be making a presentation also to the key committee. Okay? At some point in time, we're going to put together a list of options. And we're going to tell you in those options that if we did this, or if Elkhart did this, here's how it would affect your budgets. Here's how it will affect, in other words, we're going to do a pros and a cons on each one of those options that we develop. We never know how many we're going to come up with. But the options we develop will be multiple items in the option. It won't be just one thing, okay? And here's how it will affect your budget, both your facilities budget and also your academic budget. Okay? Because as you change the square footage sizes of buildings, you sometimes will change the amount of people you need in that building for custodians. Bus routes will be affected, whatever, so we want to give you some feedback that helps there, so that you really see the full picture. As we present options then, the committee will take those options, and we'll have paper all around the room, and we'll ask the committee, tell us the pros and the cons of that option. And then we shut up and let the community come back and give us feedback. Okay? When we're done with the options that we've come up with, we ask the committee, now that you've seen what we've got, you got any new options you want to put up there? And the community tells us, hey, I like parts of this option and parts of that, let's put a new option up that combines those elements. And the community can come up with their options as well, okay? What ends up happening then is once we have all the options, folks, then we tell the community, time to cut. Cut from the bottom. What just won't work for Elkhart schools? Now, here's where we ask the members of the board who are serving on the committee, don't talk. Because the minute that members of the board tell the community individually, I think that's a good option, we ought to try that, then guess what happens? The committee says, well, the board's already decided. What are we doing here? So what we've always asked with all of these is, members of the board, when it comes time for them to start vetting the options, be quiet and listen to your community. Okay? At the end, we're asking the community to start telling us what are the best options for the board to consider. When the time comes, it will not be site logic or school IQ recommending to you what to do. It will be your community recommending to you what the community would accept the most. Now, we did this, folks, over at LaPorte. In 2015, my team was over at LaPorte, and we did this. It was about an 8-month study, a long study. The committee came down, we started out with 9 options, and the committee came down to 3. And then they hung up. And they said, yeah, we can't get any more. And I said, you're not done. And it took us a couple more times before finally, because I told the committee this, I said, folks, if you can't get it to 2, how do you expect the school board to get it to 1? That isn't fair to the board. They put you together to help them understand what the community will accept. And you're telling me you've only got 3, you might as well bring them 12, 20. So we've had some interesting discussion back and forth. It's not our option, it's what the committee and the community says will be accepted the best by the community. And it's pros and cons, and it's give and take, and it's a struggle. We're just there to facilitate. So that's our role in all this, is to get people to talk. And when you finally when we get to the end of that board, we'll ask the committee to select some people to come and be the spokesperson. And they'll come and present what they hold are the best options to consider. And you're hearing from your community. Okay? Now at LaPorte, we presented the final 2 options. And what the board did at that point, which I thought was brilliant, they said, thank you. And then they stopped that right then, we were done with our part. And then they went back out to their community and had meetings in various parts of the LaPorte. And they said, we're down to 2, tell us what you think. And they got further feedback at that point. When they got done, that took several meetings, but when they got done, they passed a resolution. They had not a single petition against the process, and they spent between $88 and $100 million. But the community was so well informed all the way through that people who had some concerns and questions had the opportunity to vet those options or those questions to committee members. So I'm happy to tell you that so far the process has worked, and we think it'll work here too. Okay. Thank you for the option or the opportunity to tell you that. Next steps and timelines is hopefully that you give us permission for the areas that we want to study, so we can get started on the questionnaires. Second of all, we hope that you will develop a list of key community members. And finally, we hope you'll select 2 or 3 of your folks to talk. Now, by the way, the other good thing about having the board representation is we want the full board to understand. And certainly you should come back and share with your fellow members what you've learned or heard from all the meetings. That's not it. Please don't think that we're trying to keep it for the whole board. We're not. We're just asking the board listen carefully to this. So, and then the last thing is if you could select a couple of members, 2 or 3 at your decision to do so. But we'd like to know who those people are too. And if possible, Steve, if we could come back on the 4th, that would be great. So tomorrow, next steps, we're going to meet with the administrative team at 9 o'clock, is it, Steve? At this building, sir? Okay. We're going to do that, and we're going to bring the administrative people up to speed, because we're going to be in their buildings a lot. So we need to share with them what's going on. And by the way, we've got a process that will not disrupt the educational day very much either. So that's another thing we'll do. And so we'll share with them, and then tomorrow evening at Elkhart High School Auditorium at 6:30. And I have already sent a PowerPoint that I'll share with them. And we have a slight change to make sure, but we talked about that, and I'll do that in the morning with you, if that's okay. And we'll talk with the community, and certainly hope that you're most welcome, and hope that you will attend if you can. Does anybody have anything else? Paula, something you want to share? Anne Marie?
Is there any questions or comments from the audience?
What was the consulting costing? We're at, our fee, I think, was $93,000. $93,500. We anticipate that the timeline will be somewhere in the mid of 8 months, 9 months, something like that.
Any other questions or comments from the audience? Does the board have any questions?
Okay, coming from you guys as teachers, like, the survey monkey, how does that
Yes, ma'am, survey monkey.
how does that work for you? Is it, quickly, do you feel like teachers do it? Is it, do you feel like it's effective, a good way for communication or being back? The comment like, okay, I mean, PhDs working on that. Okay. Good, thank you.
Do we have any ways of, because not everybody is comfortable doing electronic technology, so when we get into groups and stuff and surveying community, how are we gonna do that?
Steve, I have to ask for your help from your IT department, but maybe it's even through cell phone stuff. I mean, I think you can do, I leave it up to your.
No, she's saying no technology at all.
Oh, no
Maybe if
technology.
somebody doesn't have a computer, they're not computer savvy, they don't have a smartphone, that, I think, is that what you mean?
Right.
Well, I can share one thing that happened in one of the school districts we were with. They had a couple of major, grocery stores where people went and shopped, and they put up, an actual electronic board, and people could come up and touch, read the thing in Spanish as well as in English, and they could read the question, and they could answer right there, on an electronic board that the district had got developed to put out there. Just using that as an example. Not everybody has done that.
We could have people call us and request, and then we could mail them a paper ballot if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I know one thing that we've done in my corporation is.
Go ahead and come up to the mic, please.
Yes, with students is that, we provide laptops for the students during cafeteria time, during lunchtime, made those available. So you put 20, just put 20 computers out and encourage kids to come and do their survey monkey survey. And it's always worked. I don't know what it is about that, but it's something different during lunchtime, right? So they would go and they would, we would get almost 100% participation, encouraging our kids to come down and use the computers at school. And again, for one-to-one, that probably is an issue maybe with your students.
Well, I'm thinking more from community members, maybe, some of the community members either speak a different language, older, retired people, grandparents and stuff who may not be comfortable, not understand it. So as we're talking about engaging the entire community, making sure that those voices are represented and heard.
I think that's something that we can talk about, how can we expand the access, because
Yeah.
not even if you're young, just not everybody is tech savvy. Although we all probably have smartphones, not everybody has access to that. So it's something that we'll probably have to discuss in more detail.
Right, and I would be, like I agree, and I think the comment that I'd be hesitant to make it so the community has to work to get a survey,
Or the delay in the mail, or all
Right.
kind of other things.
You're a very capable group, and I have all the confidence in the world that you'll come up with the things that work best for you. One of the things that we do is with the children, we've had a couple of districts that have had the surveys have been done in the social studies class, or they've been done in the English class. They don't take very long. They're not there for 2 hours or an hour and a half or whatever, so, normally you can do some of these within 15 minutes or something like that. So we've had some principals who said, hey, I'm going to use that as a social studies assignment. That's a good assignment, and it is. Or I'm going to use that in the English classroom. So there's ways to survey the children this far.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Bill, I can't believe you don't have anything.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, if nobody has anything else, we're gonna break until 7 o'clock, until the board meeting starts.
Thank you.
You might need to look at how you somebody probably, what they came up with.
You are now.
At 7, we're gonna go ahead and start the board meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And would you like to do the motion? The Elkhart Promise.
The Elkhart Promise. Every student is known by name, challenged and supported by highly effective staff, and in partnership with the community, will graduate college and career ready and life ready.
Thank you. Oh, we have a full house tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming and engaging in the board meeting. There is an opportunity to speak at the end of the meeting. Please fill out the form that Dora's holding up. You'll have 3 minutes to speak on any topic. After each agenda item, I will give you an opportunity to ask questions or comments. So, first up, we'll have the moment of pride from Elkhart High School JAG.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Board, thank you for letting us come and share tonight about our Jobs for American Graduates. The JAG program has been with our high schools for quite a number of years. We are very fortunate this year with the merger. We have 2 JAG coordinators that are located at the main campus, and they work with lots and lots of kids to help prepare them to be college and career ready. And they are doing an outstanding job. One of our coordinators is here, and a student. I know we have at least one student here to share with you about the successes that program has had and the impact that the student has had by working through the JAG program. Adriana Alvarez is one of our coordinators, former Memorial kid, and coming back works with our students. And she is here to proudly share with you all of the really cool things that our students are involved with, outcomes, actual statistics on what our JAG program does kind of compared to possibly other JAG programs around the state. So it is my honor to please introduce Adriana Alvarez.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adriana Alvarez. I am the JAG specialist at Elkhart High School. This is my 7th school year here, and we're just kind of giving you an overview of how the last year went. So, kind of get started here. A little bit about the program. So, JAG is Jobs for America's Graduates. It is a state-based and national program, and is offered as an elective for students to take during their junior and senior year. We do have some criteria to join the program, but usually they come with a recommendation from their counselor, another teacher, or even another student who thinks that they might be a great fit for the program. Our competencies cover life skills, career readiness, college readiness, and financial literacy, along with promoting writing skills and mathematical skills in the program. So we do offer quite a bit of mentoring with these students. We also do offer what we call adult mentoring during their first year of follow-up. So after they graduate, we actually check in with them every month for the next year, just to make sure if they have questions or if they need assistance finding a job or just need help locating certain information and resources, we're able to help provide some of that. Here is our recognition that we received this year. So Elkhart High School JAG received the National 5 Award and our new JAG Indiana State Standard of 606. We are the only ones in the region to receive this national award. So it is a great honor to receive it here. A little bit of our statistics. So I showed a comparison of our national goals. So in the blue bar, you'll see our national goal, and then you'll see Elkhart highlighted in the red bar. You can kind of see our percentages, our graduation rate, and all the criteria we exceed in some criteria. So we offer and are categorized in job placement, full-time jobs, our outcomes, including military service, and the percentage of further education rate, whether it's a 2-year college, a 4-year college, or some type of technical degree. I did want to recognize Ms. Kimball. She is unfortunately able to be here with me. She was named a National JAG Outstanding Specialist this summer. Quite a bit of work to get into that, and Elkhart actually has excelled by having 2 outstanding specialists, including myself, that have been recognized at the national level. So it is a great honor to receive that. In our region, we only have 3, so having 2 here at Elkhart is a big deal for us. I did want to just take time to say thank you to all of our counselors, to our administrators, and to the district for making this all possible. We work with quite a bit of different students, so their flexibility and their patience is greatly appreciated. So our biggest milestone with the students is to celebrate that big day, their graduation, whether it's the first ones to graduate or setting an example for their younger siblings. Here's some of our students into action. So during the summer, we offer students internships that give them career readiness skills. We do partner with them, a mentor as a supervisor of a career of interest that they have. So one of our students here speaking, she is actually Yesenia. She is the phlebotomy career interest, and she was actually hired through the American Red Cross, and she'll kind of speak on that. Anjali at the bottom, she is interested in a nursing or some type of medical assistant job. So Hart City was able to partner her with the medical assistant team. Dayanara and Charlene on the right are both looking at the business side of the medical track. So their partnership there, they both were hired, and Dayanara at the top actually converted to her senior internship this year. So she will have that experience and ask questions before she decides whether to go into the business side or actually go into nursing. Our JAG Career Development Conference, so our students actually compete with other JAG students in these different programs in our region. We were able to send 14 students this year to compete in writing skills, interviewing, critical thinking, financial, different competitions. And we received 10 regional winners here at Elkhart, and we were able to send 3 state competitors. So our biggest win is, they're competing in critical thinking at the state level, writing skills, and financial literacy. So they had to prepare a budget for the upcoming after graduation. This is Marco and a little bit of his experience. So we do want to promote some different experiences past the classroom. Vincent offers a JAG Summer Academy. Vincent is one of the college JAG programs, so they actually had them mentor high school JAG students and have them experience a week of what it's like to be living on a college campus. So they were able to kind of look at, attend classes, do a lot of leadership opportunities, and do some mentoring with them one-on-one. We also do like to promote service within our classroom. So you can kind of see we do participate with Habitat for Humanity. We also went into action when it came to Ukraine and the unfortunate event. So we were able to do a school drive. We were able to send over 500 pounds of clothing to the refugees overseas. Another kind of volunteer that we are doing, we were able to partner with Elkhart Health for tobacco and space prevention. So we were able to do part cleanup. We actually made vape kits in our classroom to give to school nurses for students who may be trying to get off tobacco or any type of vape product. We were able to make cards for the elderly and disabled in our community. And then we actually held a stuffed animal drive to benefit Riley. And I did want to highlight Aaliyah. She's in the middle picture, she actually invited 2 students to come shadow our class so that they can see what it's like, and they have them engaged in the drive themselves. So even our new recruits were creating flyers and setting up the drive and collecting animals. So I do want to invite the students to come up to share a little bit about their experience. So if all the students want to come up and just share a little bit about your story.
Don't everybody talk at once.
Hi, I'm Estrella. I'm a senior this year. Well, when I first joined, I was actually pregnant, and I was doing a bunch of things with not Ms. Alvarez, but with Ms. Kimball, actually. She was my teacher for my first year. It was honestly really fun. It taught us a lot of things, actually. It taught me how to get out of my comfort zone a lot more, how to speak a lot more clearly. I went and I competed at the Career Development Conference in South Bend, and I made it to, I think it was state. But I couldn't go that day because I gave birth that same day we were supposed to leave.
A little more important.
It's been really fun. It's been really nice. Hopefully we can actually do a lot more things with Ms. Alvarez this year too. It's been really nice this beginning of the year. Last year was so good. We did a lot of things, especially after I gave birth. They were still including me in a lot of things. They were texting me, asking me if there was anything else that I wanted to do, if I wanted to help out or make anything. They gave me little gifts for while I was home. It was really generous and so nice.
That's support. That's so important. Yeah, you should be very proud. It's hard to be young and have like babies, so you're still kind of growing up and taking this opportunity to do something more. You speak wonderfully.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lucas Hernandez. I graduated last year. Big shout out to Ms. Campbell. She was a big reason she played a big role in graduating. I think the JAG program is probably one of the best programs that our school has offered, just for the fact that we were able to meet Ms. Campbell and Ms. Alvarez. I've never met somebody who cares as much as Ms. Campbell. She is probably the most genuine teacher I've ever had. Helped me through so much, even when it was just listening. She used to write me these letters every Friday before game day, and I just want to share this with you guys. She told me, it's another football Friday, another opportunity for me to celebrate you. I came across this quote, and she said, be yourself, but be your best self. She said, I love watching you grow into a better person, better version of yourself. I'll always be here getting to gently push you. I'm proud of you, Sergio.
Oh, you make us cry. Yeah, I'm over here like that.
Yeah, and I feel like this class helps us with, I wouldn't say that like adult roles and stuff like that don't help us, but it would definitely put the extra foot forward in helping us with college, for example, like this fall I'll be attending for welding at Ivy Tech, thanks to her. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Lisa was just an amazing teacher, and I'm happy she got this promotion because I feel like she can reach out to other teachers and help them reach more students, because like I said, I've just never met someone who cares as much as she does, and she's an amazing teacher.
Thank you. Good for you being a welder. You're gonna make a lot of money. And always have a job. And Elkhart County for sure.
Hello, my name is Adriana Alvarez. I joined JAG my senior year, so I only have 1 year of it. But I would say it's a very great program to be in. It's very helpful. It has a lot of good resources, people that basically want to build their future into something better. Like, for example, they had me a summer internship at the Formative, and I got hired, which is pretty great because I enjoyed it there. And they also gifted us JAG kids a car, and I was the lucky one to be gifted, which I'm very thankful for because I say it's a blessing in disguise, honestly. And also, you just have a good social networking with different people of all different places, like the National Guard team, the bankers team, and the Navy. So y'all have reach for any resource you want. Pretty great.
And you're the one that won the car from me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, congratulations.
And I just say it's very beneficial because, like I said, it gives us a support. And thank you whoever is involved in JAG because it really is helpful to everyone that is involved. Thank you. be here. Do you guys have any questions for any of us?
Adriana, how many kids, are in the JAG?
This year, we are lucky enough to have a little bit under 200 students in the program that we actually had to bring on an extra specialist this year to accommodate all students. So we do offer it almost every period besides one. So we are running class for all 7 periods.
What is the main motivation for the students to belong to JAG, do you think?
I think it might be a sense of belonging, to have a voice. We have a lot of great community members and guest speakers that come in and take the time to answer questions. And that might be one of the reasons of, what are our options after high school instead of, great, we want to go to college, great, we want to go to a technical school, but what else do we have to offer? And who can answer some of our questions where we commit and invest in our future.
That's great.
Very first thing, thank you. And you, Mr. Kimball, it's an awesome opportunity to have somebody that needs to.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for sharing. I personally love hearing stories how kids are impacted by the awesome teachers we have. Sounds like this Ms. Kimball is fantastic, but I think we have a lot of teachers in the building tonight. I think every one of you teachers have the same story to share, so I just want to say thank you for sharing and thank you to all the work that the teachers do. It's amazing when you don't think you have an impact and you hear all this negative stuff and then you hear from a student how much you've meant to them and how much you changed their life. This is what it's all about, and I love hearing stories like this.
You are the reason that you're here, so I appreciate that.
Very good, great.
Did anybody from the audience have a question or a comment? Okay, thank you. So we have a second moment of pride. We're going to have a presentation about the gala.
I'm Joe Raver, Director of Counseling. I'm Michelle Pitts. I'm the Early College Counselor at Elkhart High School. Last Friday, September 9th, a team of 8 teachers, counselors, and administrators from Elkhart Community Schools was invited to Indianapolis to celebrate the first Indiana Educational Excellence Award Gala to celebrate student excellence and growth. Dr. Katie Jones, how do I do this? Sorry, keyboard. Oh, there we go. Dr. Katie Jenner, the Secretary of Education for Indiana, hosted the program and stated that they have brought together some of the most impactful educators, school leaders, whose daily work is helping countless students to ignite their own purpose, know their value, and understand the possibilities for their life path. There were nearly 400 educators and guests from across the state. Elkhart High School is recognized for its excellence in crossing the finish line. The initiative through Ivy Tech that granted free tuition, fees, and books for students to take college courses over the summer to complete high-value post-secondary credentials. Elkhart had 188 students enroll in this program this summer to work towards either their Indiana College Core, which is the 30-credit certificate, or an associate's degree, which is 60 credits. We were awarded the plaque, and I'm going to get this name right, so give me a second, by Bobby Okurate, who is a linebacker with the Indianapolis Colts. That's his picture there. That was kind of fun. Along with a check for $500,000. Yeah, it was an amazing evening of celebration for all the hard work that goes into offering our students dual credit and helping them achieve that early success in the program. Continue to promote the dual credit certificate that we now offer, kind of growing our teachers, trying to expand that program to get more students involved. We don't have all the details. We were told we had the money, and then details. Okay.
Do a wave.
Yeah, you're like, we'll take it, yeah.
Do a wave.
So it was a very unique thing.
Wow, congratulations, and I'm really excited about that program, that's amazing. And I'm so glad that the Indiana Department of Education is waking up to our value, across the state, but in particular Elkhart Community Schools, so thank you guys for representing.
Is there any questions or comments from the audience?
I just have an observation, Dr. Paulheimer, you're taller than the linebacker.
Box them out.
Thanks, that's that.
Okay. Up next, we have our consent items. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Okay, so our donation, $310 from the Culver Scoop is how they earned it, and that was for outdoor power technology class that will be used for student-related activities. Another donation to the ETI building from NIPCO, Rex Martin, $50,000. Let's see, Mark, this is great. Mark and Debbie George, who love pickleball and do a lot with that. They donated a pickleball equipment of $1,850 to be used in the physical education classes at Bristol. So that's a great way to get the kids moving. And then we have $1,000 donated from the Indiana Association for the Education of Young Children, which will be used for operating expenses and supplies for our teenage parenting program. That's the Career Center. Then we have a donation from Subaru of Indiana of a vehicle estimated at $22,000 that will be able to be used in our automotive cluster for training purposes. That's it. Another great week of donations from our community.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Yes. I wanted to, ask that, who's already up there, in our board packet, we have, several grants that were in there, and I just wanted to get some, explanation, some background on the full service community schools grant, from the United States Department of Education, and because it's a very large grant, and so just like to get some more information on that and kind of the background, and so people can understand what that's all about.
Sure. The full service community schools grant is a 5-year competitive grant. So you can go up to 10 million, there's a certain amount, they're looking for the higher one. So, we have the opportunity to either by ourselves, or they're actually looking for LEA to join together, especially since we're so close to neighboring LEA in our area. So that was one of the criteria.
Can you explain for people who don't know what LEA is and who our partner is?
Okay, and LEA is a local education agency, so we, Elkhart Community Schools is an LEA, Concord Community Schools is an LEA. So we are partnering with Concord for this. We have 6 sites, Concord has 2. So a full service community school grant is basically the community wrapping its arms around the school sites that are participating in this program. It's basically done through community partners, through staffing, through community partners. So we have Heart City Health. So there'll be medical, we could have, depending on how it's designed and how it looks, you could have, a school could have medical facilities, like we might have somebody there that could offer shots to students, or, you know, helping them navigate that instead of going through, I mean, it's right there for them in the community. So that they would go to Heart City Health and there would be money that's provided to them, not Heart City Health coming to the school. The Heart City Health, we would have doctors or nurses or people who can give shots, vaccinations, things like that, could come to the actual school site and help the community out. So that's a possibility, things we could offer. Then you have partnerships with, we have like 5-Star, ULEAD, CAP,
So there's social emotional well-being, instructional, medical, trying to think of other partners that we have. Nutrition, mental health services, so basically wrapping our arms around families, students. So it talks in here, I see here, it says high quality in-school and out-of-school programming. So like what would that be? Would that be like our summer programming that we ran, or what types of?
It can include summer school, it would include after school
Programming.
It could even include before school, because sometimes we have students, prior.
It talks about support for student transitions from pre-K all the way up through post-secondary institutions. So when that talks about support, is that from what is student transition? So what does that mean? Like,
So,
an example of something like that.
So, for example, our pre-K, programs, we work with the school counselors in transitioning kids from pre-K to be in a kindergarten program. Part of that would be the summer program that we provide for 2 weeks, the kindergarten camp. Then we look for students in 6th grade up to middle school. What is middle school like? What are the demands there? Our counselors. So as they transition from each, so it would be from middle school to the high school, and then high school after out into how do we help them navigate career after high school, or if they're going to college, how do we help them prepare for college, fill out the FAFSA, what does this mean for my family and I, how do we get the support that we need to continue? So transition kind of from each stage in your educational career onto post-graduation.
So, for an example of this, on a small scale, we've been having you lead work with middle school students, and then those students carry over to the freshman division and can play a leadership role there. So this would allow us to do this on a broader scale than how it's being done currently.
Is there direct criteria to what you have to use this for, like I'll print it out, like you have, like specifics of what you can and can't use it for?
Well, I mean, as a federal grant, you can't use it for certain things like food and some other stuff typically in those kind of grants, but the notion is that whatever you're doing to take care of the whole child. So as Beth said, anything related to mental, physical health, the transition, supporting families, financial literacy. We have Premier Arts as part of the grant also to help with arts education and the after-school programs and what that does. So any way that you can round out the whole educational experience for kids and support them as a whole child endeavor.
So it talks in the grant, it calls them, project students. So is this just a specific number of students? Is this all the students in our schools that are listed here, our Title I schools that are listed here? So like, or is it just specific groups of students?
It would be all the students
In those schools. Okay, and how do we measure? How are we gonna measure if the programs that we're doing and we're using are being successful for their outcomes?
So we would be looking at if their basic needs are being met, they're going to be more productive within the classroom. So we would be looking at their test scores. We'd be looking at participation numbers, similar to what happens with the 21st century after school programs of how many kids are involved and what's happening there. And then we would know from our partners what kind of engagement and things are being used by families as a whole or particularly students.
There's academic data, there's survey data, I don't know what the external evaluator.
That was my next question.
There's an external
This
evaluator.
external evaluator.
And that's quite interesting, expensive.
Yeah, they tend to be,
And
yes.
so where does that person come from? That's not somebody that we hire, that's from the federal government?
No, it's somebody that we hire,
Okay.
and is written into the grant, and actually they're helping us write the grant because they have experience doing this at several schools in Illinois.
Okay.
And have received them.
There's a big parent engagement piece to this as well. So there'd be student trips, family trips, or whatever the needs are. So while we might not know those specifically, once we find out what
parent needs are, out in the community, student needs. It might be trips to, you know, someplace to help educate them on something. College trips to college campuses, local, yes, those types of things, yes.
So then the one that's right above it, which is $3 million, kind of has the same, it was the same going on in it. You know,
She's talking about the Title I, Part A.
I know he's from the Indian Affirmative Education. Oh, so that kind of, so how do you round that out? Because some of that
Can I throw it out?
language is the same for both of them.
14 parent days.
Yeah, I mean, I know it adds a few more schools in there, but that's another $3 million that, so that, how are you gonna balance that out? Because you've got $1 million coming per year for 5 years and $3 million up there.
So that grant is for all the title schools in Elkhart. This does not involve all the title schools in Elkhart. This is fixed. That's all the title schools, but it does pay for staff salaries, intervention, teachers, it pays for our summer program. Parent engagement is a piece of that as well, professional development for our staff. So on the Title I Part A, that's a grant that we get every single year that we have from the state, but we have to, it's treated as a grant, but we apply for it every year. It's just part of the Title I funding. Because as a district, we participate in Title I. So from that standpoint, this other one is something totally separate that's kind of, this is like a one-time deal over 5 years type thing. So they're separate. Correct. Okay.
Federal competitive versus Title I,
Title I
which is
is
a formula that you get.
You get automatically.
Yeah.
But you still have to apply for it, right?
Right.
For the Title I.
You create a budget and tell how you're gonna use it,
Got it.
yes.
Yeah, do the paperwork for it, but you're gonna get that.
But you're
regardless.
given an allocation and, yeah.
Okay. And then the Title II, the other grant, that's kind of the same thing. You apply for it, and that's for professional development. Professional development. Okay, and that's just a regular routine application that we do every year. It is. Okay.
Is there any other discussion?
Thank you, Beth.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, up next is the Instructional Report.
You forgot to ask for public questions.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Darcy. Is there any, public questions or comments on the consent item? Okay, thanks.
Good evening. I have some handouts. Yeah. While she's passing those out, I just want to say that I'm so proud to be the director of English learners for Elkhart Community Schools. And this is my first time in front of you as such. I've been here as a teacher. I've been here as and so now I am honored to be the director of English learners, especially having been raised in this community. I want to talk a little bit about the data that we're going to be looking at this year. So this is in reference to our goal, our district goal for English learners. So the first item that you see, it's also linked, is regarding the data for the English learners based on their data access tools. So what I did is I created a mock school based on data from a variety of elementary schools, and I used that data to then fill out this chart that you have in front of you. Sorry, here you go. So using this mock elementary school data, which is actually real data, I just combined several schools. I looked at who grew at least one level, who increased, but not a full level, so they went from a 1.7, say, to a 2.5. Students who lost a level, And then I dove a little bit deeper and found which students reached proficiency, so that's levels 5 or 6. And then those students who reached or remained at level 4. And then I really wanted to go deeper, and so I narrowed down those students who were between 3.5 to 3.9 and 4.5 to 4.9. And those are the students that we are going to focus on this year. So those are our bubble kids that we want to push to the next level. As you can see over on the, I don't know what I did. So when students are between 3.5 and 3.9 and when they reach level 4, we see more success on ILEARN. And so then the same would be true for those students who get to level 5. So on the next page, these are the students who are, these 16 students are 3.5 to 3.9. And I want teachers and principals to know who these 16 students are. So know the names of these kids, what grade are they in, and then as you see over on the right-hand side, how are we going to support? What are we going to do to help these bubble kids reach the next level? And then the same would be true for the next page, the next tab, which is level 4.5 to 4.9. There are 13 students who are at that level in this elementary school. And so who are those kids? And how can we target instruction to them, and what can we do to help them push to level 5? So that's just a broad idea of the data. The next part that we are looking at is how to quantify that our teachers are using SIOP component 1, which is lesson preparation. And so I have handed you a copy of the lesson preparation rubric. So this is one way that we can show if we are using these methods in our classes. So there are 6 parts of lesson preparation, and so we've just written each one here: content objectives, language objectives, content concepts appropriate for age and educational background, supplementary materials, adaptation of content, and meaningful activities. So this is just a tool that we can use to actually see, are we working towards our goal of 80% of our teachers doing this in one area. So that is all. I am open to questions. I did go kind of quickly.
Okay, Steve, I'm gonna need clarification. I know this is a mock, so you've only taken a small group of people.
102 students.
Okay,
From a
102.
variety of elementary schools.
Okay, so, and you're going from 3.5 to 3.9?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so I'm just trying to get a whole context. So we're looking at, based on the information you've given us for the learning plan, so we're actually talking about 387 kids who were in that 3.5 to 3.9. So that's what we're targeting for this year, okay? District-wide. And then we had from 4.5 to 4.9, we had 145 kids. So those are, the 500 and some kids is who we're focusing on for this next year.
Because they are the ones that,
On the bubble.
by seeing that they're on the bubble, to either get to the 4, which increases their likelihood of performing better on ILEARN, and obviously gets them better to proficiency. And then obviously the point with WIDA is to get them to that 5 or higher for proficiency.
Okay. So then with the lesson prep stuff, we're still doing that and focusing on that to help move everybody, but to also help move those kids who aren't at those levels that are further, to at least try to get them to move a level or Okay,
And then we'll be looking at them overall in the 0.5 goal of has somebody moved from a 1.5 to a 2,
right,
or a 2.1 to at least 2.6.
okay,
So that will be accounted for in the 50% of students moving at the exam level.
okay.
That encompasses all students.
Right, okay, and so I want to just make sure, because I know there's a lot of people here listening, and so for context purposes, we're talking about 1,900 kids total in the WIDA. Okay.
And for those that are listening at home, can you explain what WIDA is?
So we are part of the consortium, WIDA, and the WIDA Access Test is an annual test that students take every year in February for English language learners to show their proficiency from year to year.
Okay.
And I forgot to mention when you were asking questions. So as it says there, we are asking each school, including schools of study, to track their EL data. So that is why I created a mock school as an example for the principals,
To show them.
exactly how we want them to track their data.
Gotcha, okay. Yeah, I wasn't,
Sorry.
I was having a hard time connecting that. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that clarification.
So we swim in acronyms, and, I remember sitting in the audience when I was looking at becoming a board member and going, I don't know what any of these things stand for at first, you know? So since we have potential board members running that are probably here, when you guys, like, could you tell us what the acronym, or tell everyone what the acronym stands for as you go through, just because it is super overwhelming if you don't know these things. So that'd be great.
SIOP stands for Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. So it's a specific protocol designed for English.
Perfect. That's really
Thank you.
helpful. Yeah, no, I'm just saying that I live in an ophthalmology world and they speak in total acronyms and I'm just lost.
Yeah.
You know, so anyway, yeah, I don't wanna have anyone feel lost.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm.
Good questions. Any other questions?
Is there any questions or comments from the audience? Anything else from the board? Thank you.
Thanks for coming in and doing that for us. Welcome to the.
Second piece on the instructional report is, of course, to talk a little bit about assessments and data. So back in 2019, when the iLearn test changed again, we were very curious at that time to know what happened with students when we were looking at their NWEA results. So NWEA is an assessment that we give 3 times a year, which looks at students' growth and proficiency in language arts and math. And the goal is to see, based on their score at the beginning of the year, by the end of the year, did they make at least a year's growth during that year? And there is some predictive ability for NWEA in how students will do on iLearn. Back in 2019, when we didn't know that predictability because the 2019 iLearn test was new, I had gone through and taken the roster of all of the students, and I looked at the 30 students around this cutoff score. So in 3rd grade language arts, to approach a proficiency, according to the state's measure, students need to score a 54-16. So what I did is I took the roster of 3rd grade students and looked 15 up and 15 down from that 54-16 and found that kind of the average score that a student had obtained on iLearn or on NWEA was about 194. So that let us know that if a student at the end of the year scored about 194 on NWEA, that was a pretty good indicator that they were going to be in that approaching category on English language arts for 3rd grade. So what we were really wanting to look at, of course, is the at proficiency level. So again, if a student in 3rd grade language arts, based on those numbers that I ran at that time, were about a 202-ish, then they were going to have a pretty good chance of being proficient on iLearn. So this grid was put together to just give us some idea as to where that was. So I went back this year, and we went back and looked at this, and I then went in and looked at those same categories and the number of students that we had there and looked at those averages again, and the averages were a little bit higher. And what we were looking for, again, is what kind of predictability is there for that, so that we would know if we can get kids to this kind of NWEA score, that's going to help us really know where they're going to be on iLearn. Back in 2020, NWEA had done a similar study. So the year after I had done that original work, NWEA does this work, and they have a similar kind of chart that's available here. So back there, when I was saying that we needed about a 202 on spring third grade for English language arts, and WEA is bearing out that it's about a 203 in the numbers of students that they did. So this gives us a really good idea. And where this really came into play was when the PLC coach met with the principals. There were conversations around setting goals for students and proficiency goals versus growth. A lot of times when we're thinking about teacher evaluation and growing students, we think about them wanting to make a year's growth while they're with us. But if a student is entering third grade already behind in that NWEA score, if that RIT score is not at grade level, then making a year's growth just means they're going to remain a year or two behind based on that score. So the challenge that Cheyenne was giving the principals was to think in terms of how do we get kids to proficiency on our iLearn scores. And the way to do that is when we're doing that mapping, that map growth through the course of the year on NWEA, we can see how students are making that. So this was work that we had done before to look at that, and we've revisited this in light of that meeting that we just had. So now buildings and principals, as they're looking at those goals, can be armed knowing that this is kind of the range of where we need to have students on NWEA in order to see the proficiency on iLearn. So I mentioned that the last meeting that was something we were going to be working on and getting back together in front of people, and so we had shared that with principals at our last principal meeting so that they had that and could use that for the work that Cheyenne was doing within the PLC. Any questions on that I can answer for you?
Any questions or comments from?
I am a third grade teacher. I heard two scores. 194 for approaching, being able to, is that correct?
Approaching would still not be at proficiency, but getting closer.
Okay, and then the 203, 204 area would be.
Fantastic, yes.
And is that score once that's achieved in spring?
The spring score, yes. Yes.
Is there any other questions or comments from the audience? Anything else from the board?
Good evening. Our first e-learning day for the district is coming this month on the 27th. And we would like to share with you what our plans are for that day, because truly this is going to be an experience where our professional learning communities are working together. So I will start by sharing with you what we're going to do at the secondary level. And the plans are the same both at the middle school and the high school level, working in their respective areas here. So at the high school plan, you can see that there's going to be time for students to reach out to their teachers during the office hours first thing in the morning. And then the bulk of the work happens here where the content areas will meet together. Science teachers, math teachers, math teachers, etc. And through the lead of the content area specialists, they will work on those pieces that make up the guaranteed and viable curriculum. Then afterwards, they will return to their home schools, and in the afternoon, they'll have a couple hours for building level meetings, and then they'll have office hours to work with their students once again. And so here you can see, for example, the names of all of the content area specialists who will be working for the different content areas. The work is laid out here on this chart, where if you clicked on any of these, it would take you to a repository where all of the work is housed, where people can access it very well. The next column shows what the essential standards are. That is, at least for the courses that have completed their essential standards. Now, with so many standards that are, so many courses at the secondary level, it's taking time to identify all the essential standards, but we're making really, really good progress. So if you were to click on any of those, you'd be able to see what that is. In each of the content areas, there is a middle school and a high school administrator working with either the middle school group or the high school group. Then there's the content area specialist. In some of the content areas, we have a middle school content specialist and a high school content specialist. In some, the content area is only at high school. Somewhere, the content specialist, such as art, is both, or the content specialist is both 7 through 8 and 9 through 12. That person will meet mainly with the high school teacher group, and middle school department chairs will be leading the work for the middle school level. So that's basically how that one will work. But then here we go. This is the one I'm looking for. The work that they will undertake that day, I can get that open, is actually an 8-step process, and it kind of right here walks through what each group will be doing today. But then we go to the 8 steps, and like I said, depending on the course, they could be anywhere within these 8 steps. The first one is, of course, identifying those essential standards, because that really gets at what it is that students are supposed to know and be able to do. And from there, we move on to, well, if that's the case, when and how do we do that? And that's when we go through an exercise where they develop a scope and sequence, and we actually have created a template that they will follow. I guess I didn't give myself permission to look at that particular document. And so they will go through that exercise. From there, they will write a course overview, which identifies what the units of study are. So that really gets to the how are we then going to handle those essential standards. So that really all answers that first PLC question, what it is that students are supposed to know and be able to do. From there, the next important question that we have to answer is how we're going to know if they know it. Well, at the high school level, and even at the middle school level, and even at the elementary level, we are actually in the process of creating common formative assessments. Common means it's the same given for everyone in the course, whatever that assessment may be. Formative, one way to look at that is really the word inform. It's informing us how we are doing so far. And I think I have used this analogy with you before. It's like going to the doctor for a checkup, and the doctor telling you, well, this is your status right now, and so you really got to do this, this, and this in order to get yourself together, physically or mentally, whatever kind of doctor you visit. So that's really what it is. It's informing you, and you still have the opportunity then to make any necessary changes or adaptations that you need to do. So that's what common formative assessments really do. So that's really the 4th step. Then we move to the 5th step, if I can get this mouse to cooperate with me. There we go. And that is actually the common summative assessment. That's the end of the semester, the end of the course assessment. Most of our subject areas have these in place already. And so really what we're asking teacher teams to do is, if they have in those common summative assessments already identified what the essential standards were, and that common summative assessment really assesses students on those essentials, and they can break those apart to smaller components to help them meet or create those common formative assessments. Now, a summative assessment, going back to your analogy again, is like at the end of life, and they do the autopsy on you, and they figure out why you came to the end of life, right? And that's what an autopsy does. That's what a common summary assessment is. This is where the student ended up, and these are the reasons why the student ended up there. Not a whole lot you can do with over at that point. That's why the CFAs are really, really important. And that's why it is that we are going to be collecting that CFA as a common formative assessment data throughout the year, and being able to then make those instructional decisions that we need in order to help those students who are not quite there yet, or decide what to do with those students who've already achieved it, or what our next instructional approaches are going to need to be. The other three components do with the creation in smaller chunks of that whole guaranteed viable curriculum, and those are done in different units of studies, and that's the creation of them, and we have a template we have that they follow as well, one that's called Understanding by Design. Someday maybe I can walk you through that, what that means and what that's all about. And then, of course, the last two there get to the last two questions in that PLC process, questions 3 and 4. Interventions deal with what are we doing, the students who are not getting it, and then the last one, the extensions, what are students going to do when they already got it. So that's really our work for the year, to get all of our courses, to get through all of these 8 steps so that we have that guaranteed viable curriculum in place, and we can implement it, and we can work with students and help them achieve. So that's our work at the secondary level for that day.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Make sure I'm talking in the microphone for you. Okay, at the elementary level, we are going to be working on math essential standards identification. So as you recall, last year, we identified at our April e-learning day, our language arts standards. And so now that we have those, we need to move on to math. So last spring, we asked principals in the same fashion that we did with our language arts to go ahead in their buildings and start having those conversations with teachers. We called it the Accordion Process. So what that means is we want all teachers in the district to have a voice in the process. So it's like it goes back and forth. So we asked principals to go back, talk with your teacher teams. We gave them a template. Have your teacher teams identify the standards that they feel like are most essential. So those come back to the district. Take a look at those, and then we get feedback, and then those go back to the teacher. So that's why it's called an accordion process. So we are now to the point where we have done that. We've asked principals again this fall, at the very beginning of the school year, one more time, take that back. We provided them with some guiding questions, which can be found in this document. I won't read the whole document to you, but this was pretty much the document that we gave to the principals. Asked them, we gave them a resource here if you need some help, like for our new principals that are just coming on, that maybe those conversations had not happened or been at that depth. Here is some guidance to get you caught up with everybody else. So that is this activity here. And then we asked everybody to plug in their standards on this spreadsheet. So you can kind of just see visually when you look across, you can see them starting to come to life here. You can kind of see the ones that people are really focused on. So our goal on the 27th will be to bring all of those teams back together by grade level, and principals, once again, they are assigned to teams, and these are the teams that they are assigned to. And so the teams are the same with the principals, but we have just changed who will be leading out, so that gives our principals some experience in sharing in that leadership work. We've included our deans and our assistant principals in this work as well. And so in the red are our leaders for that day, but like I said, they will share in the presentation, and they will lead out those conversations. And so we met with our principals on August the 5th and on September the 7th, and we actually allowed them work time on the 7th to go ahead and put their presentation together, which basically, the good news is, from last year, we had the English language arts presentation, so they just took that, adapted it for math, work together in their teams so that we will be all ready to go on the 27th. And our goal for that day is to walk out with our district math essential standards so we can carry forth that work. That was kind of fast. Do you have any questions for me on the elementary day?
Are there any questions or comments from the audience? Anything from the board? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The final piece on the instructional report is that the dashboard of data, we'll be reviewing that as a leadership team at our meeting on Thursday. And then the data from the NWA checklist for grade K1 and 2 will be data that we will populate in there for you, and share with you at future board meetings.
Okay, on to new business. Doug Thorne, you are up.
In the area of new business, the administration is proposing a revision, to the compensation plan for, employees in miscellaneous, positions. This is the addition of a new position in that plan, which would be the Education and Engagement Coordinator, at the Elkhart Area Career Center. And because he can do a much better job describing the work of that individual, Brandon Eaton has offered to join us this evening to talk a little bit about this position and how it's going to be funded. And we will be asking if you wait a second reading on that so we can move forward with this position. So I'm going to turn this over to Brandon as he makes his way up front.
Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
Again, mind if I give you a little background on this position to kind of understand how we got here? So 12 years ago, I want to say it's 12 years ago, before I was at the Career Center, the director at that time, Bill Kovach, saw a need in the dual credit area to begin offering college credits, and also the need to expand business partnerships. Obviously, the Career Center, work-based learning, and those partnerships are a vital part of our students' education. So at that time, he had elevated one of our certified teachers up into the front office to assume those duties. And that was the Education and Career Coordinator at that time. And two major goals were established for that person. First was to begin getting our teachers credentialed to offer dual credits. And the second was begin working on managing and growing our business partnerships. Within 2 years, that individual had everyone credentialed. We had started to offer dual credits in our first programs at that time. And our partnerships had grown to such a level that Bill Kovach expanded that to 2 positions. So now you have a career coordinator overseeing work-based learning, and you have a person that is responsible for the dual credit piece, which was our education coordinator. Through the years, that education coordinator really took the ball and ran. So here in Elkhart County, where we pushed out early college model, as most of you know, and I will remind you every time, the Career Center was the first endorsed early college career center in the state of Indiana, large part due to this individual, our education coordinator. So went from credentialing and offering dual credit in 29 of our 31 programs to now having an endorsed career center, 13 programs over early college. As years moved on, that education role didn't have as much to do with our individual as it did as our partners that we work with, Ivy Tech and Vincent. As they looked at more and more secondary schools offering these dual credits, the college credits being available, they started to then hire and then deploy personnel to our schools. So for example, the Career Center, we have Representative for Vincent and Ivy Tech in our building, I would say 3 out of the 5 days a week. So our education coordinator, as that person began to move towards retirement, which happened this last July, that piece of their job, that was the education piece, began to shrink. Not saying that it was not important, because there's still vital roles, interface that they have with both those dual credit partners, and a level of support. With that retirement this past summer, it allowed us to take a look at that position and look at the growth of the Career Center, and not just the growth of the Career Center, but look at the Perkins 5 legislation. The Perkins legislation is that mandates career and technical education. It's where one of our largest grants comes from. In Perkins 5 legislation, a huge emphasis of that is building and developing community partnerships. Now, our career coordinator does that on a work-based level, continues to expand those partnerships with our partners, but with the opportunity through an education and engagement coordinator, it allows us to engage those partners at different levels. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to identify an individual with a skill set that helps us to continue to grow and match the vision of where we would like to go as a career center. Our career coordinator manages right now about 400 different business partnerships and over 200 students that engage in work-based learning. That is a heavy coordinator, we would love to see you be able to shoulder some of that responsibility on those partnerships. But really, we want to look at those partnerships and not just on the human resources and the floor, as far as in the employer floor, but we want to move up the chain. How do we start engaging our business partners at a higher level so that we can have those conversations that allow us to continue to push the development of our program, the growth of our career center. This would be a grant-funded position. Actually, when this individual retired, the first thing that I did is I reached out to the state and asked if we could make a modification to our federal grant with this position in mind, knowing that that Perkins 5 focus on community partnership growth was something that we had been told at our state directors meetings over and over again. So really, we're trying to look at that position and reimagine where it can take us. We know where it has gotten us with the education part, and now with our community partners, we know that we need to push it a little bit further.
Does anybody have any questions for Brandon?
I just want to make a clarification for people. So in a sense, we are creating a new position in a sense, but it's more like a new title. But the key is that we're taking a position that was a classified position, and we're moving it to a certified position, and we're moving it to a classified position, and then we're kind of changing it. So we're not really adding an additional position. We're just moving it from one category to another, and then
I would say
modifying it.
I think what we want to do is, we believe a certified or a classified employee could serve in this capacity. I think what we want to do is we want to open it up to a classified audience because we'll have a larger pool of candidates to look at that maybe bringing a skill set that we don't currently have. That is what we're trying to do.
Right.
So we believe that either certified or classified employee brings the right skill set, could serve in that capacity. Right. But you're correct. We're looking at a current position that's on our staff and trying to say, how can we grow? At the Career Center, we do not have a lot of positions up in the administrative office. So each and every time we have an opportunity with an opening, we look at it and say, what are our current talents that we have on our staff? Where are the areas that we know we need to continue to grow? And then try to ensure that we put a person in that position that offsets everyone else.
When you talk about the grant funding, it's funded by the grants that you apply for.
Yeah, and it's an annual grant similar as what we were talking about with Title I funds. We know that we're going to get allocated a certain amount each year. We know exactly how those dollars have to be broken down, how they can be spent. And in these areas, there's only a certain percentage of our grants that can be for staff members, so we could never pay a teacher through this grant. But we can strategically match those goals that are outlined as far as in what the legislation was.
And so we put this in here in the packet, even just because it has to be in there legally, but it's grant funded. So when people look at this, you're not, not paying, we're not giving money to our teachers. We're only allowed to use this grant money for this.
Correct.
It has to be put into our packet for legality.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there any other questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, thank you, Brandon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there a motion to waive second reading?
Move to waive second reading.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Dr. Shepherd?
I'm very pleased to share with you a new course this evening. That is an elective physical education course. And as an elective course in this specific state title, elective physical education, there are a variety of approaches that can be taken for this course. And what is really exciting is that we have decided in this course to add a course that is actually training our students to become officials in 3 specific sports: volleyball, basketball, and soccer. So not only will they learn to be referees, but they actually have to do on-the-site training and actually participation, which means they're actually going to be able to earn money as referees. And at the same time, they will become more expert in each of those sports areas, just as the broad scope of this course asks for. So we wanted to share that with you. Eventually, they hope that
Is there any questions or comments?
It's going to this year.
Oh, this year?
Yeah.
Oh, so next semester?
Next semester.
I think they already started it actually, with the hope that it would.
Wow.
I'll go through.
So what happens if we vote no?
Well, this is not a vote. This is just an introduction.
By the way, we're moving.
Yeah, I can tell you, Whitson, I believe.
Oh, okay, great, great. So this is great, it's like Lifeguard. So you get to take that course, and you get to earn money.
Right.
The different.
That's exactly right.
And for those of you who don't know, like, you know, obviously everything is important, not just athletics, I wanna make sure we're clear on that, but we barely have any referees. This is an opportunity to have some.
That's right.
So that's
It
great.
fills many roles.
Yeah.
Well, it says here too, just so people know that the students will be licensed if they
Yes.
pass, and then the cost for that, the athletic department, is going to pick up that cost.
That's correct.
And then the students, will donate their time, working to officiate, to kind of pay that off, to help out, you know, elementary, whatever. So I think that's a win-win for everybody, and it helps us with winning our,
And then you have to come up with the $96.
Right.
It's full place.
Right, well, we pay for everything, have to look it up.
Right.
Is there any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So is there instruction in the class to teach them how to deal with unruly fans?
That's part of the curriculum.
That's good.
You have to be able to hold your cool.
Yeah, one more thing, are they end up getting state sport certified also?
That I don't know if it's part of the program or not.
Anything else from the board? Okay, is there anything from the audience? Since she's not on the mic, can you repeat her question before you answer?
My question, how long does certification last?
How long does certification last?
I would guess they have to certify you a year.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Any other questions or comments from the audience? Okay, Dr. Shaw. I thought you had something else.
I do.
Oh.
I am, actually, on this next item, filling in for Mr. Scott, who unfortunately was unable to be with us this evening, so he asked me if I presented. So on behalf of him, the business office recommends board approval of the attached curriculum material rental fees for the 2022 to 2023 school year.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Or do we have any? Okay, when I call your name, you have 3 minutes. The timer's behind me. Susan?
Esteemed school board members, I address you this evening respectfully, yet candidly and beseechingly. My name is Susan Law. I have dedicated the entirety of my adult life to Elkhart Community Schools. In which I feel I am being taken for granted. This is not something that is uncommon in our system. I am in my 34th year of service for Elkhart Community Schools. I hit the salary ceiling at 18 years. I have not been accommodated financially to be able to sustain my family's middle-class lifestyle. At times, I have held 3 jobs. It cuts fissures deep in the hearts of teachers already feeling discounted and disrespected, to know that we would make more money if we were to retire and work as substitutes for the very systems in which we have been loyal for decades. I am not alone when I stay at work well past contractual time. Last night it was 9 p.m. I am not alone when I use my weekends to plan lessons grade papers, or reflect on the new practices that are set forth by our administration to help students pass the very rigorous I-Learn test. I am not alone in the awareness that neighboring school systems pay their teachers a higher salary than we get here at Elkhart Community Schools. Many coworkers and friends are within the fray of teachers leaving and fleeing before our boat season can be lowered. These colleagues were born to teach, these excellent teachers. One in our building in particular leaving this week. They were born to teach, skilled teachers in delivery and relationship building, and they are gone. How long can the collective we sustain this imbalance before recognizing that a competitive increase in teacher pay would go far to squelch this problem? I believe in Elkhart Community Schools. I have sent 3 of my children through the process. I dearly love the school I teach with, my family. Many of them are behind me right now. My heart still sings when the kiddos come to the doors 34 years later. I am, however, a cog in the system. I could have retired last year, but I could not be. We are on a precipice, Elkhart Community Schools. At this precipice, do we choose to soar, or do we choose to survive its consequences?
Nikki here.
Good job.
I'm Nikki Harris. I teach 6th grade at Eastwood, but here speaking for myself. I actually taught with Sue at Cleveland for 5 years and consider her a friend. So what I'm about to say, I hope is not offensive to her. I'm going to say thank you for raising this up pay, because I know it's gotten more teachers who were part of our family back into our building. We've got a special ed teacher that's now coming back to sub, a teacher that retired several years ago who was doing a day here or there, has been in our building almost every day. So thank you, because it was a need and you met that need, or at least you're trying. I know we still don't have subs every day all the time. But kind of piggyback on what Sue said, please don't forget us, right? As the contract negotiation starts, we are tired, we are overworked. Many of us not sure how we're going to make it another year doing this. Staying late, coming in early, it's hard. I know you guys know that, but I think Sue's right when she says we're hitting a tipping point, and what are we going to do? Are we going to sink or are we going to swim? I want to swim, right? This is 28 years for me, as a para, as a sub, and as a teacher that I've done for Elkhart Community Schools. I don't want to leave. I don't think most of my colleagues want to leave, but we all have to think about our families, our future. And the last thing I want to say, we were talking about test scores earlier. Can we please stop pretending like the pandemic didn't happen? I'm sorry. I understand we need to get kids to proficiency, but when I have to sit in a meeting, the millionth meeting that takes away my time to do my actual job, to tell me that my kids who missed out on school for so long didn't meet proficiency, duh. I'm sorry, that's all I can say, duh. Of course they didn't. Some of these kids missed over a year of school because they stayed home and didn't participate in e-learning, or, they only came to school 2 days a week, for half a year. Can we please just stop pretending the pandemic didn't happen, and that it's going to take some time to get these kids back where they need to be, and to expect us, that's just one more thing on our plate, to expect me to get kids that miss so much school to proficiency by the end of the year, it's insanity. I'm sorry, it's insanity. Okay, thank you for your time.
Jamie?
nothing's repeated, same kind of theme, so sorry about that, but, I'd like to take the opportunity first to thank you for allowing myself and our fellow teachers a chance to speak with you. I appreciate the time and dedication you have shown as members of our school board. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jamie, and I'm a sixth grade teacher. I've been teaching for 18 years. I know I don't look it, but I have been. As a graduate from Elkhart Memorial, as well as a parent and Elkhart student, I'm invested in its future. Elkhart is literally my home. I want to start by saying that I have wonderful peers and amazing administrators. Nothing said here is a reflection of them. I also know that I don't speak for all teachers, and that's okay too. When I first began teaching at Elkhart, it was a fight to get hired. Positions were so hard to come by. I remember taking the first job I was offered at any grade level, which was 6, and I happened to stay with it. We're a district where people wanted to work for. What has changed? Yes, there have been political and societal changes that have happened over the years that are out of our control. I understand we have no control over things such as I read and I learn. We teachers understand that we have no control over situations that occur outside of our school walls. I think we understand these things more than just about anyone. And no, we can't change the fact that there are less and less people entering the field of education. However, there have been changes that are in our control. I know many of you are tired of hearing about teacher pay. I get it, but it's a reality. The fact that if I quit now and I get rehired in Elkhart at my correct spot on the contract scale, I would be making $15,000 to $20,000 more. That's not a pay raise, that's a lifestyle change. Our district pays teachers who have been teaching for years less than they pay new hires and new teachers. That's not right. On top of that, it's more beneficial for me to be on my husband's health insurance than on the school. Even though it's a risk, he works in an RV factory that's unpredictable, it's still more of a benefit to have a good insurance with him. Why are other districts able to offer these things but Elkhart is not? So I ask, why should we stay? The pressure on us in the classroom has become stressful, to say the least. Do you realize in the first 2 weeks of kindergarten, our students spend hours on testing, IWA, skills, dyslexia, SABIS, CFAs. They should be learning social skills, not how to take a test. I agree we need to unwrap standards. We need to plan lessons. We need to do all of these things. But we also need to be able to survive. As an educator, I read on a post on social media. I often struggle with differentiate for every child, but have the same expectations for all, but adjust your expectations to every child, and accept that motivators differ. But it's your job to motivate every child and set boundaries. So do what it takes. Are you confused? Welcome to the classroom. We're on the brink. Something needs to change, not just for teachers, but for our students and also for our children.
Mayor?
First of all, I want to say I'm not contagious. And also, today was one of the best days I had in the classroom because I couldn't talk and my children had such empathy for me. So it was a really quiet day. And so since I was one of the people who feared wanting to come and speak with you, I just would, since my voice isn't here, I'm just going to say ditto to everything everyone just said. I spoke at the school board 28 years ago before I was a teacher. I was in college, and I caused such a row that Dr. Bechtel, the superintendent at the time, called the principal of my children's school, wanting to know, why can't you control your parents? The hot topic was portfolios. Students should be involved in their own portfolio. What way? How far we have come. They're not talking about portfolios anymore. Children aren't even involved with those types of things. We're just teaching them to take a test that takes 3 hours for one test. I didn't even do that on the final. When I think of these kindergartners who take a test, 30+ questions, tears just form in my eyes. I cannot believe that we are doing this to children. First thing I learned to do was scream, child, this is child. We conquered ISAP. We can conquer ILR. But our children are suffering. So besides teachers getting more pay than we do, we must, or you're going to lose us. I have generosity in the physical room. Please advocate for our children, because these things with testing must end. It has to end. There are other ways of holding teachers accountable and knowing our children are learning. Thank you.
Michelle Cruzmeyer.
My name is Michelle Cruzmeyer, and I teach Cleveland Elementary School. I'm in my 25th year. I'm also a graduate of Elkhart Memorial High School. I went to Cleveland myself, and then to Westside. Both of my children graduated from Central High School as well. I'm here tonight to talk again about test scores, and I'm going to thank Jamie, who is a 6th grade teacher, and Tammy, who's a 4th and 5th grade teacher, for recognizing kindergarten. We have to remember that our kindergartners, some are coming in at 4 years of age, some are coming in at 5, yes, some are coming in at 6. But within the first 21 days of school, we gave 5 assessments. The first was Savant with 30 questions. The second was the NWEA skills checklist for letter identification, 52 questions. The third test was the NWEA math reading fluency. I'm going to tell you this is a horrible test. I understand it's a dyslexia screener, but this test could possibly have 180 questions. I'm going to say that again. 180 questions. 50 of those questions are not read to the students. It is a sentence that they are required to read and then pick the picture that matches the sentence. 5 years old. The fourth and the fifth tests are both NWEA, beginning of the year, math and reading growth. Both of these assessments have 44 questions each. So that's 88 questions for those 2 additional tests. I'm standing in front of you because someone needs to speak for our elementary children. Tests should not take center stage in the classroom. We all understand high-quality assessments can be a valuable tool for teachers to determine where students are struggling. I believe that is why the corporation is focusing so much on our PLCs, on our essential standards, and on developing CFAs across the corporation. But 5 assessments within the first 21 days of school. These are children who can't write their names, who can't tie their shoes, who have trouble remembering where their seat is the next day. Again, we should be teaching them social skills. We should be having conversations with our children, not giving them an iPad and expecting them to sit for 30 minutes and take an 180 question exam. We'd like to invite you as teachers into our classroom. This is happening at all grade levels in the elementary building. Please come and join us and see what your children are being exposed to. Thank you.
Hannah Smith.
Hello, I'm Hannah Schmidt. I also want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak tonight. In fact, I didn't have this on my phone, but as I'm sitting here, I actually hesitated to speak in what you might think of me having this feeling. But after hearing all my friends and the courage they have, here we go. I could give input related to a variety of topics, such as the unbelievable amount of student testing in kindergarten through 3rd grade. missed prep periods covering classes, a too early school day start time, and growing demands related to student and teacher mental health. However, I'd like to focus on input related to our salaries tonight. I've worked alongside my Cleveland elementary family for 16 years. I love the educators and students that I work with. I can't imagine a different path for a career I would choose. I'm passionate about my role in the lives of students. I do think this is my calling. However, just because it's my calling doesn't mean I should be underpaid for my life's work. Our teachers, especially middle career teachers like me, and veterans need opportunities for appropriate placement on the salary schedule. I've heard regular discussions about how a teacher could quit now and if hired back in a year's time, be placed on a higher rung on the salary ladder. Why not keep us and pay us now? In addition, local Michiana districts such as PHM and some others pay a higher living wage. In some cases, a beginning teacher, fresh out of school without experience, makes nearly what I make after 16 years of experience as a general and special educator here. We're losing good teachers to other districts. Please don't misunderstand me. I am very thankful for my career. I want to bring positivity to our schools, but we need policies that value ECS educators and staff while also attracting new talent. There is an opportunity with salary negotiations to send a message that our teachers are awesome and teachers should work here. Thank you.
Well, that's all we have from the audience. Dr. Tolheimer, do you have anything?
Would like to give Casey or Mr. Chevalier an opportunity to update us on transportation. So.
Good evening, each and everyone. Quick update on transportation. Currently, we have 90 drivers. 4 of them are injured, unfortunately. This baby will be coming back fairly shortly. We also have 6 office people, including myself, that are driving as well too, that we have available. As far as the new drivers, we have approximately 5 that are on the various states of being trained right now. 2 of them will be on the road as of Friday. We complete classes that are going to be doing here. We're making it. We're doing it every day. We are working very, very hard to provide transportation for each of these kids to get to schools. As far as stop finders concerned, we are doing everything we can to maintain contact with them. We have weekly contact with them. We are doing, we have IT involved with this from the onset, and continue each and every time when we do have communication with them. That's unprecedented as far as the stop finders. We don't have IT come in until the very end. We started it right from the very beginning. As far as our tentative time, we expect to have stop finder fully going, at least in the introductory stage. It's going to be after fall break, and I think that we'll be well on our way. In addition, we've hired a person, her name is Michelle Ernsberger. She will be coming to us. She will be in charge of, she's the supervisor of communications dispatch. That will be her primary mission, to make sure the stop finder is up and going, and maintain contact and communication as far as with all the parents, and so that we can go ahead and make sure that these kids have an idea of when these buses are going to be coming, so that we can stay on top of that. Thank you very much. We will continue to do this.
And just 3 quick things from me. First of all, continue to thank all staff for the start of school and to continue to cover and do the things that everybody's doing. Particularly would like to say thank you to all of the staff and community partners who were involved in the Hispanic resource event that we held with the freshman division so that our Spanish-speaking families could learn about community resources, the schools of study, that we held last week. So that was a great event for us. The next thing that I would want to share is that just kind of an enrollment update. We've been kind of waiting to see where things settled in a little bit. So in the fall of 2021, last fall, our enrollment was around 11,538. And then when we did our spring count in February, we were 11,308. And as of last Friday, when the count was completed, we were around 11,200. So down about 100 from our spring count. Now that's an actual student count, so once we do the final count and the final ADM number, some of those students are part-time or dual enrolled in other programs and things that it will reduce that most likely to where we could slip below 11.2. But right now we're about 100 off of where our count was in the spring. So that gives us that update at the moment. This coming Friday is our official count day. So we'll see where things are at that point. And then finally, the reminder, as Mr. Jarman, or Dr. Jarman said during the work session, tomorrow night at 6:30 at the high school auditorium is the public presentation regarding the feasibility study and that process. So members of the community and the school community are welcome to that. I put that information in the learning brief to everybody. But for people who would like to do that and know more about that process and what's happening and more about the key stakeholder committee and members of the community who would like to be involved in that are encouraged to attend that. We will also be live streaming that, so the link to that will be on our Facebook page. Okay.
Did you put that on our Elkhart school page?
I'll check with Brenda to see how she's, I mean, she's pushed it out all kinds of places, but I'll double check with her.
I just wanted to know if we had that same information on like how quickly and rapidly our staff are leaving too. Like the same kind of, like with the students leaving, like we have the same type of report for staff members that are leaving as well. I know that we're refilling with like new students, we don't have a bunch of openings, I just wondered it, compared to last year, how many staff have left our district?
I'll get our HR person to share that with you, but yes.
Anything from the board?
I just wanted to say, I had an opportunity last week to go stop at the Art Depot. Wow. I mean, there's a lot going on there, a lot of opportunities for kids. I know they're having their grand opening on Monday, so I would encourage people to go to that. There's an art shop, kids are making, art items to sell. They're hanging out, there's a lounge, there's a cafe. There's a really cool room called the Splat Cave that was super cool to go into. Music, it was just a really neat environment to see the kids in that and just, you know, some of them just hanging out, doing activities, doing homework. I know they're going to be offering different classes. They do something different depending on the night of the week. And so I would just encourage, if you haven't gone to, get the word out about it, because there's some really cool things going on there for our students, and it's just a great place for them to be able to congregate in a safe environment.
Video game club, chess club, cooking club, flag games, painting classes. This made by students. This comes right here. And then don't forget, first the coffee that's here. So.
Yeah, I just cannot not say something after hearing our teachers pour their hearts out. And, I have felt so, since the one thing I wanted to do when I came on the board was to help everyone feel welcome, wanted, and valued. And I've always said from the very beginning, the number one thing we have to do is to make the teachers that we already have, that have put their time in, that have affected me, my children, and my grandchildren in such positive ways. We need to make sure that you feel welcome, wanted, and valued. And it's hard to do when there are some restrictions on us in terms of what we're able to do and pay. I wish I could move the needle before I'm out of here. I will continue to support you guys. I'll continue to help in any way I can. This is really weirdly off topic, but I looked back over the years and how many, I mean, Carrie, you might be able to tell us what the percentage of females are in this profession here in Elkhart. I don't know if you have that.
About
85%. So I had a grandmother that was a teacher. She wasn't allowed to say that she was married when she was teaching because that was a no-no. And traditionally, women took teaching roles because we're nurturers. Not all of us, I know there's 15%, and I do not mean to discount any men that have chosen this. We need male role models. But because we're women, and because back in the day, we were considered to be a second income, everybody thought it was okay to pay us less. And I think it's actually really time as women to say enough. Our value is so much greater than what people value nurturing. There is nothing more important than nurturing the lives of these children, the kids that don't get it at home, the kids that need you so much, and you are on this mission field, but just because you're on a mission field doesn't mean you have to be paid in a way that is not respectful to the time you put in, to the heart you give, to the soul that has been you and our Elkhart Community Schools, because you have chosen to be here, stay, and make it your home. I appreciate that so much. And this is my district. This is my heart, and I want it to be different for you. And if there's any possibility that it can be, I will do whatever I can, whether I'm on the board or not. I am going to continue to be an advocate for you. You deserve it. Thank you so much for your courage. Thank you for being candid with us. Thank you so much. It was really important. I just really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
So I'm encouraged with Carrie being here as your union president, being able to hear everything that everybody is saying, that you will negotiate your little heart out with your administrators. And when you fight for what all of them deserve, as a board, we will back you up. You're being in the administration and your board right there with you. So thank you guys for voicing it, for hearing in your administration, and, you know, just know the board will do what they can when they